hello to all of our BPTV fans, YouTube fans, and Facebook fans. I'm Alan Levine, the Talking Machine. I'm here co-producing, co-hosting my 22nd Maria's Ideas Teaches Us to Paint. We have another great guest. Let me introduce my co-producer and co-host, Maria.
Hi guys, Maria DeSimone-Prasic here from Jono's Art Studio in the Southside Slopes in Pittsburgh. And our special guest today is Krista Gause from, I'll let her tell you where she's from. But some of you may recognize her, you probably do.
Hi guys, as Maria said, I'm Krista Gause. I'm one of the trainers at the National Aviary, and I'm really excited to be here today as Maria has been a longtime friend of the National Aviary for a long time now.
Love it
I'm
there.
honored to have you on here. I've been going to the aviary for, I don't know, maybe as long as it's been around, since I'm 68.
I met my husband there.
Always loved it, yes.
1988.
So always enjoyed it, grew up in Greentree, so it wasn't a long trip.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
It's a very fun place to visit.
it's awesome.
Me and my three sisters, great memories.
Yeah.
And my daughter and son, from them going, and they're in their 30s, so.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, we're going to talk about, we're painting the penguin. So these photographs I did use from the National Aviary, from their photos. We think this is Patrick by the
Ooh.
little spots. They have their little markings are very individual. So I did, these are two of the penguins, African penguins from the aviary.
First
So-
question, are they like fingerprints?
I mean, essentially, yes. You know,
I don't mean exactly,
Yeah.
so we're good.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the most, I mean, the feather patterns will change very, very slightly because birds do lose their feathers and regrow them. And I'm sure we'll talk
right,
a little
so
bit
maybe
about
not
that. But
grow.
for
Think
most
about
part,
that,
those traditional
yeah.
markings stay fairly consistent from year to year. And she's the one that I can recognize by spot pattern because she has two spots.
Oh, that's right. Patrick's a
this-
she because
Yes.
they thought she was a he, right?
So she was named for the former Patrick division that the Pittsburgh
Yes,
Penguins
I'm
used
a
to play
sports
in.
guy, I
And
understand
she was
that.
one of the original ones that came to the National Aviary,
Okay.
you know, at this point, many years ago.
Yeah.
She was actually there before I started, and
Aw.
I've been there for 18 years.
wow.
And at the time, the ones that we had brought in to live with us at the National Aviary
Yeah.
were all named for Pittsburgh Penguins.
gotcha.
related things.
I
So
have a
it's-
little insight
Okay.
on that. There's this Reginald's Coffee in Bethel Park, and one of the ladies working there, her dad was the first trainer of the Penguin back in the 60s.
Wow.
And she had pictures of it. I forget her name right now.
You mean the hockey?
Well,
Penguin.
the Penguins.
Yeah.
Penguin team?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We got it.
I
Sorry.
Not the
I was-
bird.
I
but
didn't
the-
know if you trained the penguins.
No,
you did.
but he was the first penguin of the team. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay.
And I saw pictures of it, and I remember him. It was so cool to meet her, the daughter.
That's
So,
really awesome.
Lots of
Yeah.
connections. So, okay, well, we're going to get started. So we have a couple different things that I'm going to show you first. And also, we are using white. This is an ultramarine blue, which tends to be a warmer blue. You can use any dark blue, an aqua, turquoise, a red, and black.
Ooh.
So what I did here, I have on my YouTube, Maria's Ideas Art, you can watch a 10-minute tutorial for every episode if you don't know how to draw or you want to learn how to draw. So this is an example here of how I show you, and it's done with a grid pattern that you can transfer any image, any size with the same proportions, okay? So this is how I show you. So you can watch that if you need to draw it. And that's what this is. Now, if you want to draw it ahead of time on a piece of paper, and you can tape it to your canvas or your board or whatever, and you can get transfer paper. This is like a carbon paper for
Yes.
older generation people.
Yes, we understand
And you
that.
lay it underneath, you transfer it on. Or you can rub chalk on the back or pencil, or you could just draw right on your canvas. So the reason I'm showing you this is this canvas, the way we prepped it. We can do this one of two ways also. So we have it, I drew the design, I transferred the penguins, and I put painter's tape. This is just painter's tape. I covered up the penguins because we're going to paint this background. We want this background to be nice and blended behind them. If we paint it over them, you'll cover up your drawing. We also could have painted this background first, let it dry, and then come back in and transfer or draw your penguin. But for time's sake, we're just going to do it this way, and it just shows you another technique for if you don't want to let it dry, or usually it should dry overnight or at least for a few hours. So, all right, so that's what we're doing here. So that's why we have blue tape on our penguins. So we're just going to paint the background, just paint right across the tape, and then when we're done with the background, we'll just pull that off.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh.
So that's that.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Let's go.
So what we're going to do is we have a large 1-inch brush. We usually dip it in water first and then take the extra water off on your paper towel, dab it on your paper towel. Now we're going to start dark, we're using acrylics, dark to light, and we're pretty much just going to mix right on the canvas. You don't have to really worry about mixing on your palette. So I'm going to start dark to light on the design, and this looks a little more realistic than we're typically going to paint, that because it was from a photograph. So we're going to kind of keep our brush strokes. If you wanted to have this look, you see they're kind of arched
Yeah.
like this, like
That's
a smile.
interesting.
And that's the way maybe the sunlight's coming in, the camera view, that's the way it looked. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of black in the bottom too with my blue. So we're going to make it dark, and then as it starts to come off of your brush, you just add more paint and then start to transition into the next color. So you'll get the dark, you'll get the mid-tone, and you'll get the cleaner color. You might want to rinse your brush even at some point too if it starts to get a little too much of one color. But that's pretty much it. So I did that. So I'm going to start with my blue. I'm going to just put the blue down first and see how I like it. I'm putting it on pretty heavily, but I still feel like, and this is just a preference, you can do it or not. I still feel like I just want a little bit of some of the black down in that very deepest, darkest spot. And then because the black will stay in the brush, I am going to rinse my brush to make sure I clean it, and then I'm just picking up blue. And then it also repeats the black that is in the penguins, which is nice for a nice way to just spread the colors around and make it a little more kind of a cohesive design. So you can see I'm just painting right across that tape. And if
Yeah,
you didn't
thank you
do
for
that,
leading
then
me.
Yeah, I was
you would
gonna
just
say
be-
that's very helpful.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
because if you didn't do that and you were going like this and painting around the penguin,
Yeah.
You won't get
it's
those
really
arcs.
difficult to blend and get this really nice shape. So, but anyway, so yeah, let's talk about. Do you want to talk about the penguins or anything? What do you guys have going on at the National Aviary right now? or-
Sure. Luckily for you, I can talk about penguins for days. So,
Whoa, let's
Okay.
go.
I personally have worked with the species. I actually got my career start with African penguins at the facility I worked at prior to the National
Really?
Aviary.
Oh, okay.
Wow, is that
So it's
interesting?
kind of helped over the years, grown my career, if you will.
Yeah.
I've had years where I haven't worked with them very much, and then other years where I work with them a little bit heavier. But I think one of the things for me that's like really, really interesting about them is that they're, when you think of birds, you obviously tend to think of birds that, spend a lot of time flying through the air.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a species that just simply can't do that. And
Right, because they are a bird.
They are a
Yeah.
bird. They are
Yeah.
definitely, even though they may look like they're covered with fur, they are 100% covered with
You know
feathers.
what? They do look that way. I always thought that.
They do have some areas of exposed skin, but we can talk about that a little bit later, probably when we actually get to the part
Yeah.
where we're painting
Okay.
the actual penguin.
I like your plan, Kristen.
But
Yeah,
there,
I'd like to think ahead sometimes.
Yeah, and I did learn that I know that I can't remember how many in a square inch, but like their feathers are so tiny, right? Like how many are in a square inch?
Yeah,
on the-
so birds that fly are only going to have about 10 feathers per square inch. So like
Okay.
when I'm like working
10
with a lot of
feathers.
children, like if you think a square inch is probably about,
Yeah.
Okay.
give or take that amount of space.
Yeah.
Birds that fly only have about 10.
Okay.
They want to be very lightweight, so they have hollow bones.
Yes,
Right.
I'm
Whereas
familiar with that. yes.
penguins, they need to be able to sink to be able
Oh,
to,
right.
swim effectively to catch fish, and they eat a lot of fish
Yeah.
as well.
How much do they eat a day, do you
They
know?
can eat about 20, I'd say up to 20% of their body weight in a day,
And what
which
do they
is
weigh?
the equivalent of a 100-pound person eating up to 80 quarter-pound hamburgers in a day.
oh my goodness.
So it's a lot of
What a
food.
correlation.
They
That's like having a
definitely tend to metabolize a little bit more.
wow.
But they spend a lot of their time swimming. So, when
They
you
work
need
it
to
off.
eat that
Sure.
much, they need to work
Right.
it up. But it also means they're spending a lot of time underwater. And as you can imagine, it's going to get a little chilly the longer you're underwater.
Right,
So
yeah.
those flighted birds, like I said, have that 10 feather per square inch, but the penguins are going to have up to 100 in that same space.
Oh, wow.
And they're packed in like shingles on a roof.
Yeah, that's
Once
interesting.
again, helping for that warmth, because and the penguin species, probably should point out too, these are African penguins that we're
Right.
painting here today.
And what's the
and
difference?
there are 18 different types of penguins worldwide. And
That's
we
amazing.
typically think of them as cold weather, right?
Yeah.
Lots of snow, lots of ice. I think a lot of that's typically the ones we see on TV. You see
Right.
a lot
Oh,
in
yeah.
holiday cards going into the winter seasons and things like that.
Yeah.
But out of those 18, only 2 of them truly live where there's ice and snow all the time.
Okay.
Only two.
2. Mhm.
That's
African penguins,
unbelievable.
like the ones we have at the National Aviary, are found, like the name suggests, the southwestern coast of Africa,
Yeah.
where it's a fairly warm climate. And the one thing, though, that even those warm weather species have in common with the cold weather species and the warm weather species have in common is the fact that they swim in cold water.
Oh, okay.
So having these feathers packed in tightly like shingles on a roof helps it to act like a wetsuit. So it helps to
Right.
keep them, nice and warm while they're spending all that time.
Well, I'm glad to know that they're comfortable because I was worried about that when I watch them. I always feel like, oh, they're so cold, but they're probably good, huh?
A lot of times in the summer, they and we could talk about this too, like in the picture, there's going to be like a little pink patch above
Oh,
the eye.
yes.
So when they're on land in the hot temperatures, they flush blood to that pink patch. It'll turn bright red because of the warmer temperatures.
Which
that
is
they're-
probably why people were wondering why we have red, but that's why. Oh, yeah.
foreshadowing.
Oh, yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Did
because
you
they-
two script this ahead
Well,
of time?
I teach the brushes and birds class at the National Aviary. I've been doing that about 7 years now. So we've painted penguins there, and what's great about the classes there too is someone comes in with a live penguin, my live models, right, usually, and they
Yeah.
talk about the penguins and we learn about them. So I'm starting to learn about a lot of the different species of birds and things over there, which is really
I'm
wonderful.
impressed by both of you teaching
Yeah,
all this
and that's how
knowledge here.
the heat escapes. Kind of like it helps them regulate the body temperature,
Yep.
like a dog does with the ears, and when they
Exactly, because they
Yeah.
can't sweat to cool down like
Right.
humans can.
Oh,
They just don't have sweat
yeah.
glands, so they
Yeah.
have to have these other ways that they're trapping and releasing heat.
Yeah,
So,
Hope you're paying attention to all this
Yeah.
knowledge here.
yeah, that's
and
good
this is
stuff.
just the beginning.
And,
It
and
is.
look
There's
at
so much-
Krista's painting and talking
It
there.
looks good. You're
Yeah.
doing great.
Could
Looks
get a little more
fantastic.
white in here
Yeah,
because
get
I
some
went
white.
a little too dark
No,
because
you're
I
good.
got
No.
excited to talk about the
It's
birds.
fine.
But
You don't have to make it as light. You do it any way you want. So what we did was I just kept wet on wet. So when you keep it that wet edge moving, you see it's just blending right on the canvas. And if it starts to drag a little bit, you can see that texture. Just add a tiny bit of water
Okay.
if you want to.
These
Not
tips
too
are
much.
great, Krista.
Yeah. And that's it. I'm not worried about, like, we have the rays of the sun. Yeah, I probably should do that now. So once you finish, and then you definitely want it to be brighter at the top because that is that
I'm trying
suggestion
my
of the
best,
sun.
Maria. I'm struggling a little.
Well, you can clean the brush if you need to so that you get the pure white.
I want to be like you.
Yeah. No,
I'm going to clean
I'm
it.
gonna go lots of white here
Yeah.
then too because. I love blues. Like blue's my go-to
Yeah.
color. So like I would leave the whole thing blue.
Yeah. No, that
I'll
was
just
great.
tell you this much. Blue's my favorite color.
Yeah.
Me too.
My bedroom
Blues
is
and turn
blue.
all these colors right here. Yep.
Most of my clothes are blue, work included.
It's fun.
Nice. Well, you look good in blue today
Yeah.
for our
That looks
Maria's
good.
ideas paint teaches us to paint.
That's right.
You fit right in here.
So I'm going to clean that brush, but when you're done, take your time. When you're done, I'm taking the 1/2 inch flat and I'm going to dip it just into the clean white, and I'm going to take off some of that extra paint on my plate, and I'm going to come up to the top and push down and then pull up as I come in, and you can see it almost like a little tail, and that's how we're going to get those sun rays. And by doing this on the wet paint,
And you're using white with that, so
just
yes.
pure white, but it's wider at the top, and it's narrower as I'm lifting the brush, and I'm coming all the way over, and I'm going over the penguin. Now, even after we paint the penguin, I may want to just add a couple more that look like it's kind of going over the penguin. I'm not sure. But
And again,
for
that's
now,
a 1/2 inch brush.
1/2 inch flat. So you could see, and the bubbles, we'll do those after too.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what's so cool too. And when you go to the National Aviary, how they come up to the glass, like some of those the penguins, they're just like, they show off a little bit. I
Yeah,
think. They
yeah.
just love it. They come up to the glass and with
Well,
all the little.
are they
they're just,
pretty smart?
mean, they're definitely, when you talk about birds and intelligence, that could be a whole nother segment.
Yeah.
I won't
but
mention crows or anything.
Good call. You know, when we think of intelligence level with birds, they're definitely going to be kind of right there in the middle of the
Okay.
spectrum. They're
No,
very,
that's what I wanted to know because
they're-
I'm aware of that with my blue jays, robins,
Right.
finches, and everything else in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm lucky because in addition to working with penguins, I get to work with some of the crows and things, which are crows and parrots are usually considered to be the most, you know, intelligent as far as bird species go.
Well, in my
And
neighborhood,
they're
they
some of my
truly
favorites
are.
to work with
Yeah,
too.
that
so.
is great.
All right, so
Yeah.
some streaks down in here.
Yep, and then if you want it to be brighter at top, fine. If not, that's good. Yep, that looks good. Now I concentrated more. I kind of came from that center point and came out this way. But you could do it any way you choose. You can have it coming all one direction, as if the sun, you know, is on the left side or the right side. Mine's
I'm
kind of
thinking centered.
yeah, mine's
Yeah.
kind of in the center. But again, you can do
That's
it
how
any
my
way you
brain
want.
processes things.
Yeah.
Isn't very
Yeah.
much in the center.
We're simple
so.
like that.
But you see how fast that was for that background. Now, if you did that and you wanted to let it dry and then draw on top, you can certainly do that. And the transfer paper also comes in white. So if you wanted to transfer something on a dark surface or wood or dark paint, that shows up too. So I have that, and I'm going to take the tape off while it's still wet.
Ooh.
Because if this would dry, really dry all completely, if you go to take it off where that paint overlaps, it could tend to pull it back off the canvas. So I grabbed a little paper clip and opened it up.
Great
just
tips.
Just grab the paint or the tape and just pop it off. Now you might get some paint on your hands, so
Oh, I don't care.
that matters to you. And then we're just going to pull it off. It's kind of cool. Well, hopefully it doesn't come in a bunch of. I tried to do the larger pieces
You
so
know
that
what?
you
Your
didn't
top
have.
tape is so precise on there. I'm starting down.
Should
towards
all
the
come
bottom.
off in a big kind of a thing, not too many little pieces. And then there may be a couple little spots where you have to go in with the blue color, the turquoise, and just tweak it around it. But we'll do that when we paint. And then also, there's also a frisket that you can buy that's transparent that you can lay over top so you could still see them. But this works just as well. You don't have to go buy frisket. So there you go. So there are our penguins. So
This is so
Here, I'll
cool.
take
Look
that
at
tape.
this.
Thank you.
yeah,
Maria, you did great.
thanks. Painter's tape. Okay. So there we go. So now we have our penguins. And like I said, I'm not even going to worry about, like you can see where the tape didn't cover. I'll touch that up after I paint the penguin probably and just see if I still need that there. So now we have our penguins, and we are going to start with black, and we're going to start with all the darkest areas. Now
Ooh.
we have gray tones in here, we have mixed blues, whatever. We're just going to look at the darkest areas first, so you guys can use that as a reference as well. I'm going to take the larger filbert, which is the curved. It's this, for us, it's the white handle. It's a curved brush, which is a filbert. That's
Okay.
about a 1/2 inch filbert. Wet it, take the extra water off. Now, we're also going to look at just the bigger areas that we can do with this. I feel
Okay.
a little wiggly. Okay, so I'm dipping into the black. I'll take the extra off on my palette like that. Now I'm just coming in and picking in. I'm using, like, if I use the brush this way, I can get that width, that width of the paint there. If I also turn it on its edge like this, I can get a line. So it's like using two different brushes
wow.
together,
Okay.
okay? So just fill in some of these darkest, the largest areas, and then, like I said, you can lay the brush down flat, you can hold it on its edge. You don't have to worry about being so precise with these lines either. Like, see this right here? I'm just covering that up, and kind of keep in mind, probably doesn't matter too much, but the direction of the feathers are, I'm assuming, vertical, kind of.
Head to
or
tail.
Head to tail.
That's
So-
probably the easiest way to describe.
Okay, so if we paint our brush strokes, we'll keep that in mind and paint the brush strokes in that direction as well. So when you can see here now, this little, is it considered a stripe? I guess a stripe or patch or
Yes, and actually
stripe?
that serves a little, well, maybe not necessarily a purpose, but it's one way you can identify it's a warm weather penguin is by that stripe.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Wow.
And is that a camouflage
Yes,
pattern or
yes.
helps with camouflage too?
Yeah,
or?
all their coloration, it helps them with camouflage. Obviously, this isn't what we as humans would traditionally think of as a type of
I
camouflage
wouldn't
for
think
them.
so. I didn't. That's
But
amazing.
it, we have to, hunters camouflage to go into the woods. So
Yes.
They want to blend in with trees. These guys need to blend in with the water that they're swimming in.
Right.
And that varies from
they're-
colors, yeah.
so it's more about using the light to their advantage. So if there was like a predator looking down on the black back, they're harder to see because the black's going to
right.
blend in with the
Okay.
bottom
Thanks
of the
for
ocean.
explaining that. Yeah.
And loving the rays coming in down from the sun, because that's where that band across the chest comes into play. As
Okay.
well as the spotting is that breaks up the sunlight. So if that same predator was underneath looking up, and it also helps. Penguins are technically predators too. They have to hunt fish, so it helps to
right.
camouflage them against
yeah.
the fish
They
that
can
they're
sneak
trying
up
to
on
catch.
them. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
multi layers of things that they kind of use them for
Right.
there.
Nature's amazing how it's all.
Yeah.
There's a purpose for all of it. It just amazing, very amazing. So you could see I'm also painting, like when I did that little camouflage stripe, I kind of still went in the direction of the feathers, as Krista said, from head to toe. So I'm using just the tip of the brush and just kind of like little dashes. But again, that just adds a little bit of texture. You can just do one solid section if you want, and then that's his little. All right.
No, thanks for
the-
your tip. I'm just
So-
trying to do piece by piece.
Yeah, no, it's good. Now, they're not wings, are they flippers? Wings. They're still wings.
This
they
is
just
actually one of
don't-
my favorite things to talk
I
about.
know, right? Because
because
I always feel like, are they really wings? Because they don't fly.
They are really wings,
Okay.
because it kind of goes back to the bird and talking about feathers. Like for me, when I think of flippers, I think of like your marine mammals, like your
Exactly.
Yeah.
seals and your sea
Right,
lions.
right.
And I like to compare them as much to flighted birds as possible, because I think it helps to kind of really drive home that they are a bird. They are
Right.
just very unique in the fact that they spend all this time swimming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's hard to relate to
they're-
that though.
yeah, they're like-
just seeing them.
Yeah, think of them as modified paddles. You know how humans would have to move a boat through the water
Right,
with an
yeah.
oar. Their
Right.
wings are shaped like that paddle, so when they flap them up and down, it looks like they're flying underwater.
Yeah.
But that paddle
Wow, that's
helps
a great
them.
point. Yeah.
to
But
be
I always
able
feel
to-
like, are they? I know. I didn't know if I should say flippers or wings. Or I know
I
they're
don't
not-
think
I know they
anyone will
weren't
get
arms.
angry if you called them flippers. So let's just put it that way. I've heard,
Whoa.
many people do call them flippers.
That's
I
funny.
just personally think it's a little more accurate to
Yeah.
call them a wing,
Okay.
because they are a bird and they do
Right.
fly underwater.
True. Okay.
They're very much more fixed in place too.
Right.
So their bones are like semi-fused in the wings, so
Oh,
they're
really?
very
That's
they're
interesting.
very rigid.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when they
They
love-
wa-
they waddle, because they
Yeah.
don't walk gracefully at all.
Right.
They're built to be
Right, where a
graceful
bird's
underwater.
wing bends
whereas a
and-
wing,
yeah.
So it's
What about their strength? Are they a strong type of bird because that physical activity?
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're very physically fit animals. They, the muscles even throughout the legs are
Yeah.
going to be pretty strong, because they do have to, particularly for African penguins, it's a rocky shoreline that they're going to be found in.
No, I always wondered about
So-
that. They got to be powerful to go thousands of miles like they
And
do.
these guys will even like hop up rock work, so you have to have a good amount of
No, I've seen
muscle
that
to
in
get
some
up
of
and
the
down
nature
those,
shows,
yeah,
yeah.
up and down that rock work. Are they're a little, I kind of, for lack of a better description, that
Yeah.
like they're a little bit less graceful on land,
Yeah.
because their feet
made
are
for the
yeah, they're
water.
made for
Right.
the water, so their
Yeah.
feet are almost too big for their bodies, so like kind of equate it to a human wearing scuba
Flippers.
fins and
We
trying to
brought
walk.
flippers
We're
out
not
there.
yeah, we're not very graceful in that aspect. But for them, it's important because they need to be able to, swim very quickly.
And they're amazing
need-
under the water. They are very graceful. It's beautiful.
They need to be able to turn quickly
Sure.
too, so the feet act as like a rudder on a boat for them.
Yeah.
So
Wow, good
once
analogy,
again,
yeah.
it can really help aid them in that skill set that they need. And if they do need to evade a predator, being quick and being agile
Sure.
is hugely important for them.
Very good.
You're
Very
making
nice.
good
You
sense
got-
to
this
me.
is great. You're a great painter. Now you can certainly switch to a smaller brush too. But you're doing great with that
I
one.
like this one a lot, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I love Thor. It's
very
my favorite.
versatile.
Yes, it is. So I blocked in. So we're blocking in. So I blocked in that. We'll do the same thing on the smaller penguin, but we'll zoom in for that. But what I'm doing now is I'm still using the same brush, and I'm taking some black and I'm putting that on my plate. my palette, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of white. So whenever I mix my colors, I like to put them beside each other, just, instead of putting them directly into each other. And so what I want to mix here is a gray, not too dark, not too light, kind of a mid-tone. And I'm going to paint that where the black and the white, the top of the penguin, tend to transition here. And we know they're black and white, right? But on the picture and on the photograph, because of the reflection of the water, there's some blue. We're going to add some blue to the white too. So when you're painting something, it might not be true to life, but it's the way we see it as a piece of artwork and that makes it come to life. So we're adding the gray tones, and we'll add some blue in here. So you could see I'm painting, still using the same brush, same thing, keeping those feathers kind of head to toe, that direction. I'm not painting vertically, I'm painting kind of in a direction that they would be laying on the bird. Now I kind of just block that all in, and then I'll just keep blending it. Since it's wet on wet, you could see I'm just blending it here and there. Now this is where you want to kind of pay attention to where that light would be hitting, and that you could see on the reference photo. So that light is hitting up on the back, right? But I really still want to emphasize that light, very lightest points. So I just add a little bit more white here. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of the turquoise color, just because, again, it's the water reflecting. And you can do this wet on wet, and we can also, you can add a little bit while it's after it's drier too, which I feel like I might want to do that. I think I'm going to leave that go. But you could see I'm just kind of blending these, the white, same thing on their, are they toes? Called toes?
Yep.
Toes.
We have toes.
On their,
And they have little nails down there.
oh
too.
yes, I've seen those
Do they
Important
in
have to be
person.
trimmed then
Yeah.
every so often? or-
Because of the natural rock work that they are on
They
in
wear
the
'em
rocky
down?
beaches, they'll wear them down, but they're important because they're cavity nesters, so they do have to excavate burrows to a certain extent.
Oh, wow.
So for grip and for nesting, they'll.
Thanks for the education about penguins.
They're so cute in the exhibit over there when they have and the little couples are together, Any babies lately?
Our youngest are still in their juvenile plumage.
Okay.
Which is, instead of being the traditional black and white, they have more, actually, ironically, the color that I have on my plate right here.
Oh, the gray.
Like a more
No way.
a slate gray.
Okay.
And they don't reach that black and white adult plumage, so they're about 18 months, give or take.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So we have.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dave and Rita May are our two current juveniles.
Dave and Rita May.
Ah.
I love it. I know I've painted, because they sell, the artwork in the gift shop too. I've painted Disco and Sunshine and Mary
wow.
Beth, and I've painted, so many. But they're all such great models. So inspirational to paint. And they're
Sunshine's
funny.
usually one of our really good models. She's one of the
Oh,
ones
yeah.
that tends to spend a lot of time
Aw.
in the pool, interact. And I mean, a lot of them do, but Sunshine in particular seems to be really driven to the guests at the. We have an
Yeah.
underwater viewing area, and
Aw.
she'll, just literally get nose to beak with you through that window.
Yeah.
Really?
While she's
Wow.
swimming, and
Yeah, it's so
she's
sweet.
very, very interactive.
Aw. And if someone goes and visits, the females, males, they have their name on one side or the other.
Correct. Yeah.
right?
So you can't tell by looking at the bird itself if it's a girl or a boy. So we do have name bands and identifiers on them. That way, when you guys do come and visit, if you have a favorite penguin or maybe one that you've gotten to meet in one of our special encounters over the years, you can very easily see them, know their name, and then also identify whether it's a boy or a girl. So the boys are all banded on the right wing,
Okay.
and the girls are all banded on the left wing.
Oh, wow.
Cute. And October 12th?
Yeah, as I was gonna say,
Hopefully
we
you guys
have-
are seeing this before October 12th.
Yeah, we're
What's October 12th?
October
Tell us.
12th is International African Penguin Awareness Day.
No way.
Which is obviously a very important day for us at the National Aviary, more importantly for the penguins themselves.
Yes. It's
as
their day.
It's their day. African penguins are a critically endangered species.
Oh, really?
And
Yep.
at this point in time, if things aren't going to be done to help protect the species, they may become what we consider functionally extinct. extinct by the year 2035, which means there's just
Not
simply
that far away.
It's not.
No,
You
that's
know, I
getting
have an
nearby.
11-year-old, and to me, that's like his lifetime if it's not still within mine.
Well, hopefully,
and
yes.
yeah, hopefully yes.
Don't leave us yet.
So
Please.
we have it's an international day, and we celebrate it at the National Aviary by having a really special event where we focus a lot on the African penguins. You can come in, learn more about them, see a feeding, participate in a scavenger hunt, make a penguin craft. And we do a lot of things to help raise awareness because with this being such a critically endangered species, we want to do as much as we can to protect them.
Yeah.
The National Aviary is the leader for what's called the AZA Penguin Safe Program.
Okay.
Wow.
So kind of a little backstory as to how all of this works. With them being critically endangered, most of the threats to the populations in South Africa are by humans. It's things like habitat
Really?
loss,
Yep.
oil spills, overfishing, effects of climate change.
Yeah.
And all of these things are causing the numbers to decline very rapidly.
It's very sad.
And we work with groups in South Africa, like SANCOB, to help bolster populations. We're part of what's called an SSP program,
Right.
which stands for Species Survival Plan.
Ooh.
And the point of a species survival plan is to help with, especially these critically endangered species,
Yeah.
keep the zoo populations very healthy, very genetically
Yeah.
diverse. That way, in the event,
That is a great program.
It's amazing.
So they do so many things that people don't realize the National Aviary is more than just
No.
coming and looking at the exhibits.
I'm amazed, and thanks for being
Conservation
a
and-
guest.
Oh.
Yes.
And it's something we are very, very passionate about with
Yeah.
a number of our species. And, one of the biggest challenges, though, is for African penguins. We do work with certain species at the National Aviary.
Yes.
We are part of releasing animals back into natural
Oh, are you?
habitats,
Wow.
like things like Guam kingfishers and Guam rails. But the African penguins, if we were to try to breed right now for re-release, those birds
Yeah.
would just meet the same plight as the ones in South Africa.
Yeah.
So
I
the first
see.
step in any kind of a conservation breeding program is the education of what
Right.
what pressures are these animals facing, what we as humans can
Wow.
do from simple things to bigger picture things to help protect them. And that way, if we can get those things under control 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, our
Yeah.
population in the zoos is already genetically diverse enough that we could start to breed for re-release in the
That
future.
is
Right, but you don't
So
want
there's a
to-
lot of work that goes into all that,
Sure.
and that's obviously a very quick explanation.
And
That
like you
is
said,
quick.
you
it's
know,
really,
very
really,
interesting.
a very, very important part of
Right.
their.
But if you just
their
breed and release
survival.
now, it's
It's
not going
not
to
gonna
make
do
a difference.
anything, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
And
very
we have,
interesting.
had
Thank you.
several successful hatchings over, like I said,
yeah.
I've been there for 18 years, and off the top of my head, while I'm concentrating on blending my paint correctly,
You're doing very well.
You're doing a
we've
good job.
had, probably close to a dozen chicks over.
Oh, yeah.
If not more.
Right.
Our colony size right now is just about 17 birds.
Aw.
17. Wow.
And that's, a very normal, for our habitat size. They live in colonies.
Yeah.
And within those colonies, they will
Is there an
form-
alpha male like they have in all places?
Not truly like an alpha male. So how their social structure works, you travel to places and see penguins. They live in these big colonies, can be thousands upon thousands of birds together,
Yeah.
depending on the species. But then within those, they will have a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, if you will.
Do they
And,
last that way for a lifetime?
that's another topic I love talking about. So yeah, they typically
I'm
will.
glad I'm hitting on those.
They will typically stay with that same pair or with that same mate for the
Ever.
length that they're having success raising offspring.
Oh, so
Which for many of them can be their entire lives. But
right.
if
And what are baby penguins called?
chicks.
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 Okay. Just wanted to clarify. I've heard that, but I wasn't sure if that's legit.
Yes, they are. They are.
We got the expert
Yep.
here. It's
Yeah.
legit.
They are
Thank you,
chicks.
Chris.
Yeah,
You're
I just want to
welcome.
interrupt you guys for a sec and just let you know what I did here. So after I blended some of the gray tones, I added some white. Again, you can see where the sunlight would be hitting up here, but I still put in some of the turquoise color, and I'm going to probably add a little bit more once it dries more. And then I took the little fine brush and picked out the details. So you did great. For someone that doesn't paint, or ever. You're
yeah, I'm
phenomenal.
pretty sure this is probably the second time I've ever painted in my
It's
life.
gorgeous.
This is fun. I like it.
And you're talking too. You're doing a great job.
You're an expert.
a new hobby.
Unbelievable.
Oh, you know what? You didn't take your tape off your little guy up there.
Oh, I forgot about my little guy up
I
there.
just noticed that. Like you.
I got so excited talking, I
know.
completely forgot about the little
Just
one.
while it's wet. Yeah, we just get that off of there. But yeah, that looks great. So just switch to your smaller little liner brush, little round brush, and then I putting my little highlight in the eye because that's really important. And then I'm going to paint. So let's say we're going to put some pink above the eye.
Whoa.
Not too pink, but not too. So we're going to say it's a little warmer water here, okay, right? So it could be a little brighter pink maybe if it's warmer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Brighter pink. We
Probably
got it.
more
Think
when
you
they're
see- I was
not
gonna
in
say
the
it's more
water.
when they're not in the
I was
water,
gonna
but the
say,
point,
yeah,
you know, you have-
exactly. Yeah. We're going to pretend he was out. He was really hot and just dove in the water, and it's still maybe a little bit pink because we just want to use that color. We just want to get
in before I get to that.
just that little bit right there. Are they the only ones that have the pink above their eyes?
Pretty much any of the warm weather species will have that.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of another one of those, you know, identifiers for lack of
Sure.
Ah, that's a
Sure.
good
You know.
word.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see I pretty much have blocked in again. And really, instead of worrying about, is it a penguin? Just look at light and shadow. You can turn your image upside down if you want, or look if whatever you're looking at. Sometimes it helps take the pressure off of, I'm trying to paint a penguin or a person or a building. And just look at the shape and look at light and dark. Highlight, shadow. And that
Thanks
just
for
helps.
the tip,
Yeah.
Maria.
So, and then I just picked out like anything that I feel like, again, just to emphasize like the maybe the edge of the body, maybe a little bit darker under here to make it pop against that blue. And then if you want any of the definition for, like I said, the shadows or highlights, you can use the turquoise, you can use the gray instead of just white. Instead of just the white on black, you use the turquoise or the gray. So it's lighter, but it's not so bright because it doesn't have all of the light from the sun. It just has a hint of the reflection, if that makes sense. So we kind of have, I got that one, and then, oops, I think we're going to get that little, and we got to make sure it doesn't look like angry or anything. Get that little line in between. It's a beak or bill, both, either. Beak.
Yeah, I think either's
Beak.
fine.
Okay. And
We're
then-
not too specific when it gets down to that.
I did learn with a bird though, the nose or the nair, right?
Correct,
Is it the same on these
correct.
guys?
It is.
Nair. See, I'm
I think
learning.
they're a little harder to see in general.
Okay,
Because
so-
the nair blends in very well with the beak on these guys.
Gotcha. I'll tell you, there's nothing cuter than a penguin up close, though. I'll tell you, they're just so sweet. You just want to hug them and kiss them, you know.
Ah,
They're really
They are
cute.
very, very personal, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many people love them.
Mm-hmm.
do they make different sounds when you come around?
They can. So one of the ways, like, and it goes back to natural behavior when you think about how they live in these big colonies. If, you know, one was to go out and, you know, spend a ton of time swimming
Sure.
and then, you know, kind of come back into the colony, they may not land in the beach, the same exact place that they left it from.
Good point.
So they need to be able to then find their significant other again, and they will do what's called a contact call. And I won't do it justice, so I'll spare you the really bad impersonation.
Oh, no, that's
but
all right.
like each of them does have their own like kind of unique, you know, call. And I think, you know, as one that oftentimes I work a lot with the penguins that participate in some of our encounters.
Yeah.
They recognize we, you know, go up to their habitat and, you know, ask them to come out to participate.
Sure.
So they hear and they can recognize like the
Oh,
pitches and
sure.
the tones of the voice, so they learn
Wow.
who you are. And then it goes right back to that natural history. They have to learn to recognize those pitches to
Sure.
be able to find, you
Yeah,
know,
that
the
makes
members
so
of their
much
family.
sense.
Aw.
Thank you for that.
Cute. So I think we're going to, that looks fantastic.
actually-
And then I'd say just grab your little detail. Now you can pick out any little details, but it looks really, really good. But we're going to zoom in on this little penguin and get him going in the bubbles. And then we'll be done and we'll reveal and yeah, okay. So we zoomed in with the camera here on our little guy. We don't know who this is, but you know, we'll pretend it's
Patrick the girl.
Well, this is Patrick, right? We think. So,
Oh, okay.
we'll
the
see.
next one.
We can pretend it's her buddy Owen.
okay.
Ah,
just for
there-
fun.
Thanks,
Okay,
Krista.
that
We
sounds
needed a
good.
name.
Yeah.
You come
Okay.
up very well.
Okay, so now we have a smaller filbert. It's a 1/4-inch filbert. Same technique as the larger. We can use it flatter for the wider area, or you can use it on its edge. And then we'll use the small, detailed, round brush for the other areas. Now, this one, you can see here, it's black, right? We know it's a black and white penguin. However, if you look at the way the light's hitting, it's not really black, it's
bluish.
blue.
Yeah.
So you want to keep in mind, I did put black on there first, but I'm going to clean my brush, and that's probably enough on there. I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to mix some white with it because I still feel like even that blue is a little too dark. And then I'm going to paint this with the blue mixed with the white. I still feel like that's too dark. I still have too much black in there. So
use a little black, but not much, or
not too much actually.
Okay.
I would say do it blue, and then we'll do it with the blue first. You can introduce the black. How about that? Because it's going to be more blue than black.
A little
And even
introduction,
Yeah,
yes.
even some of that turquoise color, because again, it's reflecting the colors from the water.
and the lights from above.
Yeah, so we're going to use that turquoise color. That's also like the white part of the penguin is just more of the turquoise. And then, so we're going to paint dark to light again. But instead of the dark being black, it's the blues and the turquoise. And then we can add our little highlights. So yeah,
Okay.
the underbelly, it's just more of that turquoise color. And even mixed with the white. So you could see this is under here. It's a lot, if you look at the photograph, the picture, it's just a lot lighter
Yeah, it
than
is.
you think. Okay, here, and then I'm going to grab my little brush at this point and come in.
So start out with the larger one, then as you get details.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the small one for the whole thing too if you're more comfortable. I usually
I
tend
was
to.
thinking of it. You must have read my mind.
You can't. I mean, I just tend to just block in things with the larger brush. I'm just a habit.
Well, you're very good at that.
Oh, thank you. So that's pretty much it, and then I'll come in with the marking on the head is whiter. So we do have that light is hitting that top, so it would be a little lighter up here. Then I'll come in with the black. You don't have to worry too much about being so precise with the eye and everything. It is further away, so you would not see as much of the detail.
I like doing a dot for the eye, though.
Yeah.
That is kind of fun.
I know. I actually enjoy it. Thanks.
Yeah. You can see here. And then, yeah, it's just a lot simpler just because, like I said, it's further away. And this is black. I know we've probably said it on other shows, but we really, really love the aviary, National Aviary. And we love everyone that works there. You guys are so special. You
thank
can
you.
tell
Yes.
you really love what you do. The care for the animals, the birds over there is unmatched. I mean, it's amazing. And it's just wonderful. You could tell. And you have to really love what you do because it's not always, I'm sure it's not always fun and games, and there are days where it's really hard, and you have a lot to maintain and keep up with. They have needs, right? Every single day. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday either, right?
Exactly.
They-
It's it's a 365-day-a-year job.
Exactly.
There's many Christmases where I see the penguins before I see my
Wow.
son.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate because he also then gets to grow up kind of learning the importance
yeah.
of other types of life and
Sure.
because
No,
it
that
does
helps,
each
yeah.
animal. We can talk about what it is to care for a penguin specifically, but even within those penguins, they do have their individualized tastes and personalities, and that's the same for every single
Picky
species that we
eaters
have.
or yeah.
So we do have to individualize care as well.
Sure.
What
and it's
is
just
their
definitely
what is their daily eating habits, or how do you feed them? Since you
So-
teased me with it, I'm curious.
Yeah, so
Carry on.
Because they do eat as much as they do, we feed them essentially a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner.
Okay.
So they
Three
get
times a day they get fed.
Three times a
Yeah.
day they get fed. With that being said, they're very good at kind of like self-regulating in the sense that we walk out, the trainer has a bucket full of a variety of different fish.
Yeah.
And, as you, work with them more, you get to know who's kind of got certain preferences and
So they're
which
aware
animals
that you're
prefer
coming
what.
to feed them, so they come over?
Yeah, sometimes in some instances, I think animals as a whole, like even people, we kind of know dinner's at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sure.
My dog tries to tell me dinner's at 4:30 when dinner's
Yes.
always at 5:30. So they are very habitual, and they know that there's certain
Okay,
times
I
of
thought it
day
would
that
be
they're
that
used
way.
to.
Yeah.
So there's times where they're just waiting at the entryway for us. There's other times where they can, they'll hear you coming and they'll start to make their way over to the feeding area.
Well, my 17-year-old calico cat in the morning at 6 o'clock, she comes up to me and meows. So I
Aw.
feed her.
Yeah,
And then she hides all day.
and then they eat, they come up, they eat the types of fish that they want. They're very obvious if they don't like a certain fish, they'll just
Yeah.
spit it back at you, or they'll just flat out refuse to take it, or if they're really not that interested, they'll just simply walk away from you.
Really?
So they're very clear in their communication on how much they want to eat, and
They're very specific
They're very
then.
specific, and sometimes they'll come up all 3 feeds. We feed. First thing when the staff arrives in the morning prior to us opening for the day, and then we will have a feed at 10:30 that the guests are able to come and
Oh, wow.
watch. And we obviously talk about African penguins, their plights in the wild, things that we can do to help. And then
Sure.
we feed them again at 4 o'clock. So those guests that may not necessarily be there in time to see the 10:30, they have an opportunity to come and watch it. It's a very popular thing for people to
yeah.
see.
And
And
are
I
they-
mean, to be honest, it's impressive.
Yeah.
They eat for their body size. They eat a lot.
Yeah.
And they can eat very large fish too. So
Show us how big.
this is probably a good example. Like for our African
One
penguins,
fish.
they can probably eat some fish that are even longer than it and significantly wider.
That's amazing.
They're eating things like
I never knew that. That is awesome.
yeah, they eat sardines, anchovies.
Those are my favorites.
I was gonna say some of the same foods that you and
I
I
can
might
eat with them. Yeah.
And yeah,
No,
they're-
that is
and then
great.
we do keep track because eating can tell you a lot about their health too. So like kind of some of the behind the scenes things that you may not necessarily think about is
Right.
how an animal eats can be a really good indicator of their health,
How
and
healthy
especially
they
with
are.
penguins, it can predict a lot of things for us too.
Like what does it predict?
I mentioned at the very early on before we started even painting,
Yeah.
how birds will lose their feathers and grow new feathers in
Yes.
again, just like a cat or a dog will shed its fur. So for penguins, because their feathers are so important for being able to swim,
Yeah.
they have to, it's called molting, they have to molt differently than a bird that flies. They go through a catastrophic molt, which is
Oh,
where they
wow.
essentially lose all
It's
the feathers
drastic.
on their body at one time, and then they
Oh, I
grow
bet
them
they're
in
looking
again.
sweet when they happen.
They look a little rough around the edges, I'm not going to lie. But right beforehand, if you, once again, thinking about natural history and how they feed,
Yeah.
if you're not going to be able to swim for a significant amount of time to catch your food
Yeah.
while you've lost all of your feathers, you're not eating.
Right.
So what
Oh,
they do
great
right
point.
beforehand is they eat a
They gorge.
ton. They gorge themselves. And like, for lack of a better description, they will literally look like they're bowling balls.
Aw.
They get
Because
that big,
they
yeah.
gain that much weight. That way, while they're losing their feathers, they can live off of those
Sure,
those
that
fat
makes sense.
reserves. So we
Sure.
can oftentimes predict because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody's eating and eating and eating, and like
okay.
they'll double to triple the
Then you
amount
know
of
they're
food
going to
normal. We're
molt.
going, okay, someone might be bulking
Aw.
up to molt,
Yeah.
and then they'll just stop, or they might only eat a fish.
Okay.
And in
Then
in
what
Africa they
happens-
wouldn't eat it all because they wouldn't go in the water, but we feed on
Yeah.
land, so it's easier.
Yeah.
So when they're going through that, your feeding
Mm-hmm.
sessions aren't that good then. They're
Luckily for that individual, but when you have as many as we do, you
They're
still
eating.
have birds coming up to eat, so
Right.
you can still come
Yeah,
in
so you
and
can
watch
still
them.
function each
Yeah,
day.
they
That's
all,
what I was wondering.
Yeah, they're all very individual. A lot of ours tend to molt in the spring. But we
Okay.
do have one or two that molt in the middle of February, and it's just
Wow,
kind of
that's
what
strange.
works for them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, here's the question I have. Do they get hungry in the middle of the night? Since if they're eating at 4:30 and then you're coming back the next morning, do they get
Well-
hungry at that time or even ask for food?
So
or?
that's a great question.
Thank you.
And instinct for them still when it gets dark is to sleep.
Right.
Okay.
So
that
it
make-
doesn't.
I wonder.
Yeah, it
that
doesn't
makes
seem
sense.
to be. It doesn't seem to be
Well, if
an
that
issue for
stomach's
them.
growling
Yeah.
after being a bowling ball.
But
might-
you know, just like well, I mean, I'm a poor example because I'm not a big breakfast person. But like
Yeah.
a lot of us, when we wake up in the morning, we really enjoy breakfast because it's that first meal since
Yeah.
dinner the night before. So we will see them sometimes being a little bit extra hungry in the morning versus that 4 o'clock feed
Okay.
where they've had 2 opportunities
Oh, thank
to
you
eat,
for answering. I wondered
to
that,
eat and
yeah.
things like that too.
Okay. All right, so I finished my little guy. He's a little, like I said, he's not as detailed as this one, and I added some bubbles around him, and then we'll go back to the bigger area and then add our bubbles and just
You
tweak
got to
anything
teach
that
me with
needs.
bubbles there, Maria.
I
Yeah.
just grabbed the little brush, and
the
I
littlest
just,
one, or
I just kind of went like this, just did some little dots. I did some white ones and I did some blue ones. So
okay.
I like that, Krista, you inspired me to add a little bit of the pink
Big
on,
fan
Wow.
of,
on there.
big fan of the pink on the feet for some reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see that on their feet, too.
I'm going to do that. Okay. All right. So now what you want to do is look at, do you need any little highlights or shadows? And I'm going to add some little bubbles. So I'm taking the little round liner brush and some white, and I'll put some on my palette and just roll. See how I roll? You want to keep that little point. You just roll when you're loading the brush. You just roll it like this in your fingers. Keep that little point. And I'm just going to paint some little circles, right? Leave them hollow in the center. You could even add a little dot on one of them here or there, like the little reflection. And you also may want to add a little bit of water so that the white is more fluid. So they would probably make bubbles near their wings, right? If they're moving around their feet, maybe.
Oh, definitely off the back.
Yeah, like here. So in the photograph, they were here too. So just add, the bubbles, however you choose. But this is kind of fun. And yes, like at the feet here, there were a couple here, like near the little toes, and then they were kind of coming off of that. And that's pretty much it. I'm going up into that upper sun area. If you have a lot of white on your painting and they're not showing up as well, add a little blue to them. Mix another color. Put pink. Make pink bubbles. Whatever. It's a painting, right? You have artistic license to do
Oh, thank you.
whatever you choose. And that's all. So the little bubbles, I think, are fun. And that's pretty much it. I'm just going to look at everything and see again, like if it needs any highlights or shadows. So then we will make sure everything's good on our paintings and we'll do a reveal. Okay?
Okay.
So we're back. We finished our paintings. Fabulous job. I think maybe on your free time now, you just start painting, huh?
Well,
Yes.
we had a good
Gotta
teacher.
find
so.
that free time. Thanks.
Krista,
let's
you did
reveal.
great.
Yes, Krista and Alan.
Thank you.
African penguins. Go check them out in person at the National Aviary.
Yes, go there.
We're there 7 days a week.
Ask
7
for
days a
Krista. Ask for Krista.
What are the hours? 10 to 5?
They're 10 to 5. Always check the website too,
Yeah.
because we are closed on occasional Tuesdays during the fall.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming. We enjoyed having you and learning about the penguins. We appreciate what you do there.
Well, thank
and
you for having
your
us.
time.
And
You did a
thank
great
you
job.
also for being on our 22nd Maria's Ideas teaches us to paint.
Yes.
It looks like you were here for all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Next month, episode 23. This is a photograph of Skyline Drive in Virginia, which you recognized right away.
Yeah,
when
I'm
I
pretty sure
said
it's
that.
part of Shenandoah. But
Yes. So the artist who is going to be joining us, she took this photograph, and she can talk about that. So it's called Skyline Drive
Wow.
in Virginia. So that'll be next episode. And she said, and it's episode 23, and 23 is a significant number for her, so that worked out. So, okay. See you next time.